Welcome to Higher Praise.
Okay, we'll get started here tonight. It's a blessing to be back with you. If you would just bow your head in quick prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to join together again as a church family. We reach out to those that are watching online, and we ask, Lord, that you'll just be with us as we get started through the Thanksgiving period into Christmas, that we just keep everyone totally focused and aware of what we should be celebrating, and maybe not the case of what we are celebrating, especially with those that are around us. But keep us focused, Lord, on the reason that we take this time of year to give homage to your Son coming into this world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, just like Bishop was saying a minute ago, we've got a lot to talk about. And we could, and I could get into some real depth on some of this stuff, but I just came up with this thought today that I think we need to be all aware of. It's to the point, there's nothing really new going on other than what we've talked about the last several weeks. It's just an increase in activity in each one of the areas we've been talking about. But we've gotten to the point, I believe, that this is no longer a political thing. Politics have nothing to do with this. And I'd like for you to stop and ponder on that for a minute. And you say, well, politics is driving it all. Politics, this is far beyond politics. Folks, there's only two powers in this world. Only two. And we know what those are. Anything in between, whether it's economic power, political power, whatever, is totally immaterial to what's unfolding before us. It's strictly a two thing. You've got the dark side and you've got the light. And there's nothing else that has any power other than those two. And with that being said, don't ever underestimate the power that the dark side has, because it is tremendous. They're in total control of the world. And we've told that's the way it's going to be up until the end. And that's what we're seeing unfold before us. And that leads into what I want to talk about a little bit tonight on China, because I've always tried to, on these updates over the last several years, which I mentioned in here when we started the Wednesday night programs, to keep you aware of little things that happen that shows you that we're another step closer to a system of a one world government. It's being done right now in China. You're probably aware that China's had severe riots. I've seen videos that's been sent by students out of the country to teachers here in the United States of things that's going on. It's really interesting. China is so afraid of the information getting out. I watched a video day before yesterday on one of the riots in Suzhou, and right after this riot started, you see a car pull up. Not a very big car, a little sedan, a little gray looking thing. It has antenna array on it. And the sole purpose of that car is to jam radios or telephone signals. That's the sole purpose. China is working their systems to perfection, to the point who's the guy that's head of a World Forum? Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is head of the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum. And last week in a speech, he pointed out that China is the absolute perfect, symbolic, and systematic system that they need to be following on a worldwide basis. He's saying that China is the poster child for what's coming. And the World Economic Forum needs to be copying what China's doing. Now, I don't believe this time the protests are going to go too far in China. They're already starting to subside in Iran. The reason being is because the Iranians have come down so hard on those folks. And with the same thing. The thing of it is today, for a riot to get going, you've got to get the word out. You've got to get the people out in the streets. And what's happening, and Iran's using Chinese technology to shut down the systems of communication. So that if you want to get on your phone and say, hey, we're all going to go meet down at 7th and Grand tonight and start this, you can't get it out. And if you do get online and start posting, the government already knows about it. In China, what's happened right after these things started, some of the word went out, well, we're going to have a protest like let's see, tonight's Wednesday. This was Monday night. There was a planned protest, a big one planned. Well, at the area where they go have the protest, what few people showed up, full of cops, lines of cop cars. They knew they were coming because they're watching and listening to everything that's being said and communicated. And as I said a few minutes ago, this little car pulls up, it's got an array of antennas on it, and its sole purpose is to jam signals so those folks that are there are taking their videos and trying to send them out. In the case, the one I saw this weekend come from a student in China that's being tutored by a teacher here in the United States, and they're jamming those signals so they can't get out. So it's, I was telling Bishop a minute ago, I counted today, there are either 13 or 14 countries in the world right now that have active riots. Now, I'm not talking protest. I'm talking active, serious riots. There's a lot more riots going on than what you see in the news. There's riots in France. There's riots in Belgium. There's riots in Iran. It just goes on and on and on. And, you know, in Pakistan, India, these countries all have riots going on. And it's accelerating still again. There's getting more and more. Things are so bad in China. One reason these people were, I don't know where you saw that or not, it's back to this COVID lockdown that the government believes in over there. They had an apartment building and had a fire. That apartment building had been sealed shut because of COVID, caught on fire. They wouldn't unlock the door. 10 people burnt in that. That was one of the things that spurred these people on. Government does not care, I'm telling you. Our government is in the same vein. That's the thing. That's the reason I'm saying it's not political anymore. We're starting to see the heavy hand of this devil being manifested all across the world. Our government, if you go back, and I'm going to go spend a lot of time on this, but look at all the data coming out now on the COVID thing. Serious mistake. You know, those that got vaccinated, there's a lot of, especially young folks that got vaccinated. It's not good. It's really not good. And the government knew and allowed that to happen. They don't care. There is a segment of people that believe that they need to lower the population of the world, and some of these people are in control and allowing these things to happen. As I was talking about, China's using their surveillance system to shut these down. Some of the students that were involved in riots on Friday and Saturday got a message on their phone. You need to come in to the police station and give us a written statement of where you were the other night. Now, they just didn't tell all the students in the university to do that. The case that I read here was a young lady there was 2 young ladies in a room in a dormitory. One of them got the message. The one that got the message was at the riot Friday night. They knew she was there because they're tracking it. And now she's required to come in and give a statement. Where were you last Friday night? And you're talking about putting a damper on things real quick. That's the reason the riots are not going to, plus the people over there aren't armed. They haven't even dealt with the army. The army hasn't been called out in China yet. They're not fighting against the CCP army. It's the police force, and they have a tremendous police force. So China's using their system, their surveillance system, which we've talked about several times, to shut it down. If you watch CCTV, which is Communist China television, you will see that millions of Americans have COVID. Many of us are dying. It's on the news every day. And it's all misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it. But they control that. There's no way to get anything else in. So anyhow, the other thing that's went on in China this week was I picked up on that was kind of interesting. 2 Chinese fighters fly into South Korea, ATIS. ATIS is the air defense zone that's set up around the country. It's so many miles out from your territorial waters that military aircraft are not allowed to come into. When you say, well, that's no big deal, China's been flying, over Taiwan, South Korea. Thing I picked up on this, it wasn't just 2 Chinese fighters, there were 6 Russian fighters along with them. So you're starting to see these alliances come together. They're getting ready to have a Saudi summit. That would be with Saudi Arabia and China, along with some of the other Arab states will be involved in it. They're getting ready to do that. Xi Jinping's actually going to Saudi Arabia, which is a big deal because that's showing respect to them. Instead of them going into China, head of China is coming to them. And that shows how strong the alliance is starting to happen. There's such a thing you may be aware of called a SCO, and that's the Shanghai Cooperative Organization. It was formed, I think it's been around about 15 years, something like that. And what it is, who belongs to the Shanghai Cooperative or the SCO? It's Russia, China, Pakistan, India, and guess who they're inviting to the party? Iran. Now, you say, so what's the big deal? Well, the big deal, and I'll get into a second part of it, one of the big deals is that group of countries, you will find 60% of the population of the world, 40% of the world economy. It's huge. Far surpasses anything that the United States belongs to. And what they're working on now is creating a currency base. And what that is, you've heard me mention before, they're working on trying to get rid of the dollar as the base currency for all transactions worldwide, especially in fuel and grains and things of that nature. They're creating their own currency base, and they're already doing some trading in their own currencies, but they're going to have a unified currency base, something like the euro dollar, and that's what they're going to start trading in. And what it does, it weakens the United States' hold on so many things. It won't do you any good once this thing's in place. And it's a digital thing. They're working on a digital base. We are too. I'll show you that in a minute. The other thing that's going on in the Chinese thing was that the Saudis showed up at the China Air Show. They bought $4 billion worth of armament off the Chinese. We've been furnishing Saudi Arabia with their stuff ever since the Shah of Iran was in place. And when that started to fall apart, the Saudis come to us, and we've had a close relationship with Saudi Arabia. But the Biden administration's totally ruined that. And it's all part of God's plan. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not something you sit back and cry about. It's obvious of what's going on if you look at the big picture. We go to the Mideast. The United States and Israel are practicing right as we speak. They're having a air exercise. And what it is, here's the thing. If Israel wants to go attack the nukes that's supposedly being built in Iran, they don't have the equipment to do it. Their fighters that will be used to launch the attack on the nuclear sites in Iran can't fly to Iran and back without being refueled. They do not have the refueling capability. And that's where the United States has stepped in over the years. We do that. Well, that's what they're practicing right now. They're practicing long-range bombing missions, working with our refueling equipment, so they can practice how far they can get out, make the drops, and come back. Excuse me. The thing that bothers me about this, it's obvious that Israel's going to have to act against Iran. In the news just yesterday, Iran is now furnishing Hezbollah in Lebanon with rockets that have chemical weapons on them. So this is another factor that Israel's going to have to deal with. I don't know for sure. I know the Iron Dome that Israel has to shoot down incoming missiles takes the missiles out. I haven't looked into this, but I think I kind of know the answer. If that missile's knocked down, because you see pieces of this stuff falling all the time, it doesn't just disintegrate. What if it's loaded with biologicals and you shoot it down over top of your head? The delivery of the biologicals is still going to occur. I don't know that for a fact. I'll let you know later, but that's a thought that occurred to me today. And the reason I worry about this training exercise that we're doing, I don't know how Israel can trust the United States. What if Israel decides to move against Iran? They launch, they decide that they're going to take out the Iranian nukes, and the United States says, oh, by the way, we're not going to send the refuelers over. It could happen. I could see it happening. I really can. I can see us leaving them hanging out to dry. And that bothers me a lot. But the thing of it is, I say it bothers me a lot, but the thing of it is, God's going to pick Israel up out of this mess. We know that. We're told that multiple times. We know that Israel's going to come walking out of this. So, but all this other stuff's got to happen. It's just a shame that it looks like everything else is, is going to fall apart on the wayside. I apologize for my voice tonight, but I'm really having trouble. Like I said, the Iran protests are starting to sputter because the army is stepping in. They're arresting these folks. They are monitoring the transmissions of phones and electronics. They know what's going to occur. They're showing up before it occurs. And they're really starting to hammer these young people that's taking part in this. I had a few things, not much going on in Ukraine, other than it's still at war, but there's nothing different occurring. There again, I thought it was interesting at the time when with everything else that's facing with this country now, our Congresses are all back in session. And of course, the big thing they did this week that's so important to us and at this point in time is they made sure that God's not right about man and wife and marriage. They passed a law. It's part of the law of the land now. As soon as Biden signs it, that recognizes any other type of marriage. It doesn't have to be man and woman. And including our own senator from here, from Indiana, Todd Young, he voted for it. Obviously, he failed biology when he was in school. Doesn't understand that there is male and female. It's rather sad to know that we've got people from Indiana representing us in that way, but it has to come about. Let's talk a few things about, I just kind of marked it as general stuff. And by the way, is there any questions on anything? I'm glad that was your water and not mine. Mine's in a cup. Yeah, and you're right. The question was talking about TikTok, right? And how they have different systems in place of what's available here and what's available there. The base on the TikTok thing is that China has software put into that to track everything that's being said, where it's being said from, et cetera, et cetera. That's why just this week, Kristi Noem, I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, she happens to be the mayor or the governor of South Dakota. She forbids anyone in state government to have TikTok on any government equipment for that reason. They had proven that through TikTok, they were able to backfeed and monitor what you were, where you are, what you're talking about, who you're talking to. And what you're talking about too in China, that's where you start seeing, that's why this thing gets, again, I'll say, not political. It's beyond politics. Bill Gates bends over backwards to give China whatever they want. If they want a system such as in their TikTok to where they can totally have a TikTok program, but this one does completely different from this one does, he's allowed that to happen. The Twitter, Facebook, same thing. Musk is trying to unwind that, and I think it's really interesting if you kind of watch this thing with Elon Musk with Twitter. He obviously, it's such a mess, he's having a hard time unwinding it. I really think he's sincere when he says he's going to unwind this thing and make it try to work the way it should, which is fair and open. I really believe he's doing that. But obviously it's quite a mess because of the systems that are in place. And Musk, he understands this stuff, you know. I mean, he's a tech genius, there's no doubt about that. But when you read the things that Apple, Bill Gates, the Facebook people, and just like in Iran, they're giving Iran the ability to block things and to listen in. So, you know, I mean, it's terrible what the technology lets you. But just like what I was talking about, if you look at what China's doing today, we know that they've had this system in place for a couple years now to totally monitor their people, even to the point that most of the country has facial recognition on all the streets. They know what kids were at the riots. They just proved it here the other day, just like what I was talking about. They sent a young girl a text, said, "Hey, you got to come in and tell us where you were Friday night. We need a written statement." They know where she was at. So what all they're going to do is give her an opportunity to hang herself. Well, the thing of it is, that's one more step towards one world government, a one world government that's going to not allow you to buy or sell, not allow you to travel, not to do whatever you want to do unless they want you to do it, unless you're following what their dictates are. That's what it's coming to. That's what the end times tells us is going to happen. And what you're seeing now is a prime example. Carl Schwab's right. China is a perfect model of what the Antichrist is going to use when the worldwide takeover, the Great Reset, if you want to call it that. When that happens, yeah, they've set the stage and they're showing how to get it done. Real quick here, wanted to show you again why this stuff's beyond political. Parts of the Bible are no longer appropriate in modern society. That's a quote. Guess where that came from this week? The United Kingdom's, they have what's called the Crown Prosecution Service. It's like our Department of Justice, only a little bit higher. It's the top legal people that will prosecute someone in England. They say parts of the Bible are no longer appropriate in modern society, and you create a criminal act by citing some parts of the Bible in public. This is for real. I'm not making this up. Okay? There's actually a guy being prosecuted because he said something against some Muslims or something and quoted out of the Bible where they were wrong. He broke the law. Right? And it's no longer appropriate. That was in the court. They stood up in court, and that was part of their argument, that parts of the Bible are no longer appropriate in modern society. It's coming here. It's just a matter of time. I think it's interesting to note, UK, Britain, of course, at one time was one of the most Christian organizations in the world, the center of missionaries and everything, if you follow through history. You've watched Christianity grow and grow and plateau and fall and fall and fall. This just came out. The majority of Brits are now considered pagan. They're no longer even considered a Christian country. The majority religion in Britain is pagan. Now, we're somewhere in between. You know, we're still a little stronger than they are, but we're on a downhill slide. And then this is what I thought was really funny. Guess what's happened in South America? There are more Christians now in South America than there are Catholics. It's interesting to me to see how the different continents, and you follow it, it's the stage of the missionary work that was done. You stop and look at it, right? We were the first to be missionaries, you know, from England. We expounded upon that around the world. And in a lot of places where we started out missionary work years ago, their Christianity is growing, just like what Bishop's working with over in Armenia. And Bishop's worked with in, was it not Ecuador, but Belize. And, well, you were in Guatemala. Guatemala, see, and that's all part of what I just read, that now there's more Christians identifying as Christians in that part of the world than there are Catholics even. So it's interesting to see how that's worked. But the thing that it shows, we're told that in end times, the word will be preached in all the lands and all the peoples. That's manifestation. That's showing that it's happened. A couple other quick things. After school Satan clubs continue to pop up. Pastor sent me a thing earlier in the week, or the end of last week on this. They're just not going to let it lay. You're going to see more and more of this, and they can't stop them. And the thing I thought was interesting, I looked into this one that Pastor had sent me. I think it was out in Fresno, California. They claim to be teaching only science. That's the whole purpose. They're teaching science. So I thought that was interesting, but that you stop and think about it. You listen to what our administration and everything preached this last year is follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. Even though it's false, but they don't want religion to have any part in it. They want to cut the spiritual cord and only allow the science to be fed to you. Last thing, digital dollar, which we talked about a few weeks ago, it's being tested, as we said here. The central bank, does everyone know when someone says central bank, they're talking about the Federal Reserve? It's the same thing. Sometimes it's an interchangeable thing, but central bank and Federal Reserve, the ones that set the interest rates, getting ready to do it again here in a couple of weeks, that's all the same organization, it's the same thing. But they are testing a digital dollar. It is assisted by MasterCard, Citigroup, HSBC, and Wells Fargo. So the big banks, you know, HSBC, that's the Bank of Scotland, one of the largest lending institutions, banking institutions in the world. And of course, MasterCard. And MasterCard and Bill Gates, let me tell you, I could stand up here and talk for the next 3 hours showing you the relationship between Bill Gates and MasterCard in regards to what they're trying to do as far as vaccinating the world and things of that nature. And this stuff, folks, been going on for 15 years. I became aware of this last year, delved into it pretty deep, and these people are all hand in hand. So we'll find out. It's going to be for 12 weeks. It started this last week. And that's coming because that's the only way they're going to be able to control. It's just like right now in China. Use that as an example one more time because it's coming here. And that's what this is all about. In China now, you have some of the large communities have no paper money. It's all electronic. You have to have an electronic card to buy anything. Well, this young lady we was talking about that showed up at the riots last week, all they do is go in the system and say, yeah, she's only allowed to have X amount of dollars this week. That's all she can spend. She can't buy it. You can take us a step further. Where they're going to go with this, they don't want you eating red meat because it's a danger to the environment. They will be able to limit how many dollars you spend on red meat. When you go to the grocery store and you buy a roast, one of these days, and I think it's not going to be long, you'll walk up and you'll want to buy that beef roast, and you've already used your quota up, and the little computer thing for the clerk will come up and say, you can't buy that, you have to put that back. It's coming. It's in place today in other parts of the world. This is not made up stuff. It's happening. And it's just another step, another small example of what it's going to be like, only to the ultimate, when the Antichrist walks up and says that you will have my mark to buy and sell. We're just, every week, taking a little step closer and closer to having a system like that in place that could be turned on with the flick of a switch. So, like I said, don't worry about it. You just understand that's what's coming. We know what it is. But I would really like for you to dwell on the fact that, like I said, there's no more of political battles going on. It's all spiritual. The politics of it are just pawns in the equation. They're just the tools that's being used. There is no economic power. There is no political power. It is strictly God versus the dark side is what's happening. Thank you.